are starting a new format, a new Geopolitics Research Network, some discussions on the current situation on the battlefield, current situation of strategic situation on the Russian-Ukrainian war. And today we will try to discuss several questions. First of all, it's a situation on the battlefield. What is the consequences and results of the first period of the war, Russia against Ukraine? Second, it's capabilities of Russia trying to reforming and remodeling these forces with focus on the eastern part of Ukraine, with possible attack on Donbas and southern part of Ukraine. And third block of the questions which we'll discuss, it's the Western support to Ukraine. What kind of equipment, what type of equipment could be helpful for Ukrainian and useful for Ukrainian forces, and what is the result of Western support to Ukrainian armed forces? What actually we talked before for 1 year, maybe more. I remember we made some briefing in August 2016 when Russia created the 1st Army, 20th Army, and 8th Army, and we told that okay, from this time Russia is ready for full-scale operation against Ukraine. And since that time, we were talking that if Russia will start, if Russia starts, it will be disaster for Russia, because it's impossible in this situation with 150,000 troops to get a victory in this war. And we were right, because Russia obviously started this war with 150,000 troops, trying to apply Czechoslovakia 1968 scenario rather than another scenarios we could talk with. Very surprising decision of main attacks through Chernobyl zone instead of different variants which could be applied for this situation. But it's absolutely obvious that Russia tried to make a main attacks with, of course, airborne special forces and missile attacks and air strikes on the Chernobyl zone with airborne with Gostomel airfield after this, or in parallel with Vasilkiv airfield, and of course trying to go through Chernihiv and Sumy region to surround Kyiv from the eastern and northern direction. They got the disaster. They got the absolutely disgusting situation in Bucha, and this massive massacre in this area, in Bucha, Irpin, and other small cities close to Kyiv. But anyway, from military point of view, it was total disaster, and now they're trying to concentrate forces on, how I call it, it's a mirroring Kursk battle from Second World War, which they are trying to create on Donbas, and maybe trying to surround the Ukrainian forces from northern and southern part. So guys, let's discuss it. What do you think? What is your opinion on this?
Yeah, fully agree with you. Just wanted to add that as we know, the main goal, so-called special operation of Russian armed forces, was to set the control over the whole Ukraine, and mainly to capture Kyiv and to set its puppet government there. So they failed. Now it's obviously that they failed. They retreat from Kyiv Oblast and Chernihiv Oblast. In fact, that was the result of the work of armed forces of Ukraine. So we have to understand that. Now what we see regrouping of the Russian armed forces and concentrating the forces on the east, on the Kharkiv direction, on the Donbas direction, and on the south. The goal of the Russians is to, now they say, to liberate this Luhansk and Donetsk Oblast, and to capture the Ukrainian troops that are stationed there. But it will be a very difficult task for them because the Ukrainian defense is well prepared there. We have, I think, we have three echelons of defense, so it will be very difficult for Russian troops to break through. But we are expecting the huge Russian attack, and we have to be prepared for a very bloody battle, let's say.
One of the main developments of recent days is, of course, Russian withdrawal from northern directions. Kyiv and Sumy and Chernihiv Oblast are totally free from Russian occupiers. But now Russian authorities tried to picture these developments as a gesture of free will, but obviously these measures looks more likely like an attempt of Russian general staff to avoid total disaster and defeat, because Russian troops near Kyiv faced with lack of oil supplies and food supplies, and all those developments that led to massacres in Bucha and Irpin. If we look at the map of battlefield near Kyiv, there was a possibility to blockade and even encircle Russian forces that tried to control highway from Kyiv to Zhytomyr. So it was obviously that Russian withdrawal is a result of their military miscalculations that were a result of political misunderstanding of developments and in Ukraine and real force of Ukrainian armed forces.
Yeah, I'd like to add just right here that I think we could say that it was absolutely awful intelligence preparation for this operation. All of these results in all of part of Ukraine, all of directions, because if you're talking about logistics, it was total disaster. I told you that they were prepared for Czechoslovakia 1968. So airborne guys, we get into the critical points, and after this, all of these guys with parade uniform very fast go into capital and other cities and make a parade, or make some Rosguardia make arrested the arrest of the activists and etc. But it means that it was awful intelligence. They got, I don't know what is the deformation of this intelligence information, in which stage of this intelligence processing they got, but it was total disaster. They making decision process was based on absolutely bad data and bad intelligence information, and this is one of the worst problem of Russians. And I hope that they continue in this, because if you look now on the Kherson Oblast, when the developments of Ukrainian good tactics, we have the same situation. So Russians acting like the same doctrine like 80 years ago. They got the target, they get a task from the general staff, and they should complete this task and complete this, achieve this goal without any looking on the all of this meat and tanks destroying Ukrainian forces. So I hope that in Kherson Oblast very soon will be total defeat of Russian forces, and it will be strong impact on the southern group of forces in Melitopol and even Mariupol, because it's all of this together connected to preparing now operation for surrounding Ukrainian forces on Donbas. because it's around impossible from two sides, at least from south and northern part, and from the southern direction, I cannot see a possibility to make very active offensive operation from Russians without, first of all, Mariupol finishing operation, and of course the to be secure from the possible Ukrainian attacks from Kherson direction, because it will be disaster for Russians if Ukrainian forces will close Crimea and will attack Melitopol and after this Mariupol. It will be disaster for them totally. And one more point, it's I think that compared to Russian Soviet totally Soviet tactics, Ukrainian tactics is pretty modern. It's first of all, it's set network-centric warfare. It's obvious that Ukrainian general staff is totally controlling the situation and making the real time. And another, it's a very mobile and very effective mobile defense and counteroffensive operations, because no statistic defense operation, but very mobile. Ukrainian forces, they don't stop in cities, they don't stop on any points. The decisions on these operations based on very smart military thinking and very modern military thinking compared to Russians.
Sure. So the Western doctrine is to keep the personnel and to keep the equipment. So and the Russians, they are waging the war with this old Soviet and, let's say, Russian Empire strategic thinking, or how to say to call it, I don't know. So rely on the great quantity of personnel, and the big country, and they have a lot of population, and they don't care about this population, so they use it, and they don't have any problems with that. So with the casualties. So people in Russia don't ask the questions. The state leadership said that the people, always 100,000 or 200,000 people died because of the great victory. The people will say, okay, no problem. So the women will give the birth again. So
even better. To die for the great, for the great.
Sure.
Idea of Putin.
Yeah,
it's obviously it's a problem of not only Russian intelligence but Western intelligence, and it was a lot of estimation that Ukrainian forces actually it was kind of statistically, if you look at the statistics, 143 millions, at least 10,000 tanks, at least 15,000 armored vehicles, thousands of MLRS and artilleries, thousands of aircraft and helicopters. And compared to Ukrainian forces, even it's impossible to compare. But in reality, the people who understand what does it mean in Soviet and Russian reality, these 10,000 tanks, I would say that at least 9,000 of these tanks, it's trash. I'm sure that if you go to this depot when these tanks were put after the collapse of Warsaw Pact, this T-72, it's not a tanks. It's a bullshit. So I'm sure that it will be, they will try to repair something, to cannibalize, several, from 10 tanks to prepare 2 or 3, but actually it will be absolutely different tanks. The Ukrainians destroyed the best tanks, the best armored vehicles, this Italian Lynx and the Tigers based on the Lynx, light armored vehicles, the T-72 with last versions, with French electro-optical metrics, with all of these command and control system and communication, etc. So next generation of Russian tanks will arrive to Donbas. Will be, of course, not modern tanks. But the problem is that they still have at least like 500 tanks, a couple of thousand of BTRs and BMPs in good shape. So from my estimation, next couple of weeks will be a critical period because Russia will try to have a success on this Donbas operation, try to surround the Ukrainian forces and make a strategic defeat for Ukrainian armed forces. Volodya, what do you think about, what is your forecast for this?
I think that the big issue whether Russia will try to finish encirclement of Ukrainian forces in Donbass until the 9th of May, the day of victory, which is the one of the greatest state holiday in Russia, and that means that Russian forces that were removed from northern outskirts of Kyiv are not ready to come to the battlefield, and there is an issue how many times it will get them to be prepared to renew their damaged armor vehicles, tanks, and so on, and even those soldiers, officers that are in fields since winter. If we count,
just added the units that were participating in this Bucha operation, they now are very fast moving to Kharkiv and
yes,
to Belgorod. So
well,
it means that they will participate.
Belgorod continues to emerge the primary concentration area for Russian forces that are regrouping, and then they will be deployed towards Izum, and further they will try to push Slovansk axis to encircle Ukrainian forces, but there is the issue whether they will be recovered from battles around Kyiv, Chernihiv, and Sumy. How long it will take for Russian general staff to prepare them for a new offensive.
Yeah, you mentioned very interesting thing is the motivation of these troops who participated in fights around Kyiv, who suffered these defeats, and what is their motivation now to participate in the offensive operations on other directions of Ukraine?
Just Igor, it's moral it's absolutely critical point. I think that it's my guess that Russian command they try to move these troops from Kyiv Oblast as fast as possible. Do not allow them to think what happened, because if you send it to a couple weeks of the vacations, they will get more information. They will get some psychological frustration. They will get the feedback from different the friends, I don't know, relatives, whatever. And it's possible it will be destruction, the destroying of the morale. So they do not allow them to understand what's going on. They just from one battlefield getting them and now go to Donbas, maybe even to kill them there. Do not allow to keep this information about these massacres in Bucha, to kill all of these soldiers and officers, to destroy
the weakness,
all of these roots of this awful events, to say that we don't know where is these guys disappeared.
And talking about the possible scenarios of the next few days or next few weeks, the interesting question is that if Russia starts the offensive operation on the east, what will be happening in Belarus? Will Russians use the Belarus troops to keep our forces on the northwestern part of Ukraine, not to allow them move further to the east? So it's the question. What do you think?
I think that it is not the case that Belarusian forces will counter Ukrainian territory and try to cut supply lines, for example, highway from Kyiv towards Sarny, Kovel. That's a point that points that are quite close towards Belarusian border. And now when Russian general staff moved their focus on east and south of Ukraine, as for me, it is quite unlikely that Belarusian forces will provide their own offense without any support from Russia on the ground. And obviously, because Belarusian army doesn't have enough experience, they didn't participated in any wars before that, so it will not have any success, and it will cost a high price for Belarusian regime.
Yeah, about the price, I hope that I'm right that Lukashenko used this your theory that it will be a total disaster for Belarus armed forces in Ukraine. And Lukashenko told to Putin, who will protect Lukashenko regime if Belarus armed forces will got the problem in Ukraine? Can you imagine that some kind of 5,000 Belarus soldiers will be killed in Ukraine? Belarus people, it's not Russian people, and I'm sure that after the August of 2020, it's something different understanding of the situation. It could be a real protest against Lukashenko, and it could be a real threat for not only for Lukashenko but for Russia, because Russia still using airfields, they're using the points for missile strikes, and actually I'm sure that they will keep some Russian forces in Belarus to keep Ukrainian forces, not allow them to go to the eastern part. Actually, it's a very long Ukrainian-Belarus border. It's 100 kilometers, and the problem is for Ukrainian forces that we need to keep eyes on this direction. Anyway, we cannot move, for example, all the forces to Donbas and try to think that Belarus and Russia won't use the Belarus territory and Belarus border to attack anyway, with special forces, with airborne guys or just missiles. So the good news for Ukraine is that we have a territorial defense. So this territorial defense could be very effective against the sabotage group, special operation forces, and airborne operation. So it allowed to have a territorial defense and support from Ukrainian armed forces. But anyway, Ukrainian forces have more space for maneuver. In this case, maybe focusing more, concentrating more on the southern direction, and of course, eastern direction. So if you're talking about it, our second question, what do you think? Does Russia have enough forces? Because 300 kilometers to make this operation, to surround Ukrainian forces, dozens of Ukrainian, thousands. So from my estimation, it should be for Russia should have kind of 100,000 troops at least to complete this operation. But I'm sure that they don't have these 100,000 troops at least ready to fight. So I think it will be again some very bad surprise for Russians, especially remembering about very mobile, very smart defense from Ukrainian armed forces.
Yeah, but they still have the advantage in artillery sets and in different types of missiles. This is, let's don't forget about it. And that's why our air defense capabilities have to be increased in times. That's why we need what we are talking for months or even more. So our Western partner should give us this, let's say, heavy air defense systems. So we know that artillery is heavily used in this conflict. So this conflict is mainly about artillery and airstrikes. So on the other hand, our defense is well prepared there. So it's also very difficult for, even with heavy artillery strikes, it's difficult to dig them out from our trenches, our soil. So nevertheless, anyway, for Russians, it will be very hard task to get through our defense.
Yeah, at least for last 42 days, they didn't have any success on this area, and it means it will be very hard for them. Actually, they trying to bypass this strong defense and go through Izum to Sloviansk, and from the southern part, from Mariupol to Volnovakha, and go into the western area to the west from all of these defensive lines. It's understandable.
There is an interesting question about missile attacks. I mean that there is some reports during last days that Russia used cruise missile X-59 Ovod, and also launched Onyx missile rockets, cruise missiles from Bastion coastal defense system.
I think you know the Russian missile will stop when we'll get the missile defense. It's the first thing, and second, yeah, they obviously have a problem with Kalibr missile or naval strike missile, because they didn't have a lot, several hundreds, and I'm sure that they need some Western components to produce it. Talking about Iskander, the problem with Iskander is only 500 kilometers, so they cannot use a lot. They need to keep them in Belarus, and I think they concentrated them on Donbas, so they cannot move a lot of them to Crimea. That's why they started to use Onyx. Actually, this Onyx, the main task for this Onyx, it's anti-ship missiles. And talking about the airstrikes, unfortunately, they have a lot of them. They have thousands of airstrikes missiles using from strategic bombers, and this is could be a main problem for us. That's why I'm talking about the missile defense first, and after this, think what kind of missile Russia could use against us. We shouldn't hope that Russia will get a deficit or lack of missiles. We should get more missile defense, and after we think about the deficit of Russian missiles.
Yeah. But talking about one remark about this Bastion system, Russia showed the use of modern systems against Ukraine. They show this great pictures of this launches of these Onyx rockets, but it says, and they say that they use this Bastion system against the land targets, not navy targets, against land targets. So it says that they are short in rockets. And they are using the Navy systems, anti-Navy systems, against the land targets. So, so this is the proof that they are really short in missiles. But nevertheless, I fully agree with you, Mykhailo, that they still have this a lot of Soviet-made air to surface rockets, which they launch from the bombers or from this tactical aircraft. So we will really need very strong missile defense, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we should go to the last part of our discussion about the possible needs of Ukrainian armed forces and what kind of help could give West to Ukraine. Talking about the artillery, you're absolutely right that Ukrainian force using a lot of artillery, and because we have a mobile and very network-centric type of defense, we need, so we're using a lot of intelligence, target acquisition, and after this using artillery. As you see, we didn't have actually, I don't know, but we didn't see a lot of frontal battles like between units. We always see that Ukrainian forces get coordinates of the targets of all of these columns, all of these units, and after this using Bayraktar or artillery or of course Ukrainian aviation if it's possible, destroying totally all of these columns. So I think that the artillery will be a key element. My basic suggestion that this time, what we have, the Soviet equipment is going to finish anyway, because we have artillery, Soviet artillery for 50 years already. We have a Soviet aviation, we have a Soviet air defense, we have Soviet armored vehicles. So my suggestion that anyway, we now should start re-equipped for Western equipment for all of levels in Ukrainian armed forces. From artillery, actually, I saw a good news that UK will send, or maybe send in, I don't know.
Or have sent.
Yeah, that very good artillery system, AS-90. It's a self-propelled, very, very modern artillery, which 155 caliber. So I think it will be very nice help to Ukrainian forces. And the good news that this artillery system is on the Polish armed forces. So we have a lot of instructors. It's very close, and we could get a lot of instructors. And of course, we need more. Remembering about US MLRS with range of 300 kilometers with very precise fire, I think it will be very, very useful for Ukrainian forces. Guys, what do you think?
And then there was also the news about, I'm not sure that we already have it, but there are news that we have the Harpoon missiles in Odessa. So it's also very crucial for our defense on the south to counter this maritime assault operations. So coming back to the scenarios, so and about the equipment, so that if the Russians do not succeed in this massive attack in the east, so they will then try to keep the seized or occupied territories, right? So this where they are located now, so it's the Donetsk, Lugansk, and Kherson Oblast to keep these territories there, to keep their troops there. So our task then will be, it will be then our task to attack and to liberate these territories. And for this, we need this heavy artillery, heavy armor like tanks or infantry fighting vehicles to destroy this Russian defense. So I think that if we resist Russian these massive attacks, which will be in this 4 days or week or so, then we will have to attack and to liberate our territories, and then we will need all this heavy equipment. So it's very crucial that our Western partners will very quickly supply our defense forces this heavy stuff.
Yeah.
Look, there is a point on how much time should Ukraine need to bring this weapon to the battlefield and being able to use this against Russians, aiming to push them out of southern regions of Ukraine. I mean, the main volume of weaponry supplies for Ukraine is about mostly about former Soviet armor from countries of former Warsaw Pact. And there is a question how these tanks, vehicles, howitzers, and so on. There is an issue on is this weapon really capable to make some really shifts?
You know, yeah, we for example, look at the how many Hammers vehicles United States lost in Afghanistan. It was kind of 20,000 of them. Maybe can you imagine that I'm sure that Hammers, which is actually a very long time as Ukrainian armed forces, it could be very useful now because we have a light mobile forces. I'm not talking about the heavy and artillery, but for our mobile forces will be very nice to get some like 10,000 Hammers. Why not? And it's not absolutely a problem for United States. They have 1,000 of them in Arizona, in the fields, and of course they have a lot of F-16, for example, 1,000 of them out of service. They have a lot of artillery. They have a lot of. I understand your point that it could be a problems with personnel, the understanding of soldiers, how
personnel and logistic wing, because it is about 1,000 kilometers from western border of Ukraine and battlefield lines.
Yeah, it's it could
so
be
maybe
issue.
Ukraine also, as well as Russia, will soon need operational pause, operational gap to redeploy its forces and to get much more weapon from the West to provide not just a defending operation.
You know, logistics is always a problem, not on the mass, but on the planning and managing. The problem of Russian forces, it's a totally bad intelligence, bad plan, and bad managing of the situation. If you look at the map, and then when I saw the forces close to Borispil, staying with logistical system close to the Konotop, it's understandable. It's total disaster from the military point of view. It's not a managing. It's a crazy situation. For Ukraine, of course, the situation is better because if you organize something, you're planning how long this concrete tank could participate in the battle and what type of parts you need to spare parts you need to keep it in the service. Of course, if you're talking about tanks, I'm not sure that it's really the first priority for Ukrainian forces. As Igor told, that the first priority, from my opinion as well, it's artillery. What does it mean, artillery? Artillery should be plug-in artillery to network-centric warfare with great intelligence, target acquisition system, very mobile, and using we go into some point, killed enemy, and escape from this point for a couple minutes. It means that I remember, guys, the discussion on Dana, Czech self-propelled artillery Dana, which Ukraine got a couple dozen of them. A lot of criticism, but in reality, if we have hundreds of this Dana, I think it will be absolutely great now, because it's a very great piece of equipment with very modern combat management system. It means the target acquisition, the command and control, real-time using of this artillery system. This is the main priority for Ukrainian forces. And I'm sure that Ukrainian specialists will be able to teach and to get this equipment very, very fast. Because I saw this interview with Ukrainian pilot, and he told that couple weeks for good Ukrainian pilot to start to fly professionally on F-16. If you know a MiG-29 with 1,000 of hours, it's no problem to sit on the F-16, and after a couple of weeks use it against enemy. The problem is that President Biden thinking very slow.
Yeah. So the problem is not in logistics on our territory, or I don't think the problem is not in logistics lines on the territory of our West partner. The problem is in the speed of reaction or decision making of our Western partners' leadership. So if you say that, okay, in a week or two, we will think about supplying Ukraine with some more, for us, we don't have this 1-2 weeks. This all stuff we need all yesterday. So
remember that we asked Western countries to give us missile defense for years. So if they gave us some missile defense 2 years ago, now we didn't have any war because it could be a disaster for any missiles.
It's another question. They wanted to, in all the ways, to avoid this war. But in fact, they got it.
Avoid the Third World War. Even this war is already started. 24 February, unfortunately.
Remember again what this Minister of Finance of Germany told to our ambassadors. So why do you need all this equipment? So we will be in 72 hours and forget about it. So and all this leadership, all these politicians in Western capitals, they thought the same way. So what? And the Russians seem to them they're very scary. Oh, the second army in the world, nuclear weapons. Mr. Putin is so strong leader, and of course they didn't want to have the problems with this big Russian bear. But Ukrainians proved and destroyed this myth about this second army. And now we Europeans see that, okay, so it's maybe I would stress on this, maybe it's not so scary the Russians are not so scary, and it's not so scary to supply them with the weapons. But still, let's see about, remember the question about closing the sky. Closing the Ukrainian sky, so even in the White House, they don't see the big will to help us in this. Okay, not only in but what does it mean to close the sky? It means the NATO or American troops to have a direct fight with Russians. Okay, they don't have. They don't want this to happen, but they can give us the air defense systems, and that's it.
Okay, so I think we discussed I think the majority of the questions, and I hope it was interesting, and I hope that we will meet together again in 1 week, trying to see what is going on, because next week will be very crucial, and I think that critical point this week and next week, because Russians obviously will try to have some initiative and have some success on the eastern direction, but we will see what surprises will prepare Ukrainian armed forces for Russians. So thank you very much, and see you in 1 week.